Hi, everybody. My name is Denise Dickinson, and I am a member of the technical assistance team. I work with Katie Swellentrop, who couldn't be here today. And I'm very excited to introduce our speaker today, Catherine McLaughlin, a sexuality educator and trainer from Elevatus Training. And she will be talking about teaching students with intellectual and developmental disabilities about sexuality and healthy relationships. And I'm going to let her take it from here and tell you a little bit about herself.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be with all of you today, this afternoon, and talking about how do we reach students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So how do we teach students with IDD about sexuality and relationships? And just to tell you a little more about myself, I'm Catherine McLaughlin, and I've been a sexuality educator and trainer for actually close to 30 years. And when I first started working, I started working for Planned Parenthood of Northern New England. And I started right out of college, and I was working in the health center. And then I became an educator, and then I became a professional trainer. So that's where my work really started. And then 2 years after I started doing education, I ended up having an accident, and I acquired a disability from having a spinal cord injury, and I started to use a wheelchair. And so at that time, you know, all of a sudden people were starting to treat me differently, even though I felt exactly like the same person I was before. I just happened to use a wheelchair. So I got very interested in disability awareness and those pieces of sort of my personal life. And it was very difficult, to adjust, but then it became my new normal. So lots of times people were thinking of me as either dependent or needy, or even inspirational or a hero. So I was really just understanding disability and how the world viewed people with disabilities. But I also, at that same time, people were reaching out to me as a sexuality educator from developmental disability agencies, from special education departments and schools. And they were saying, we really need help addressing this topic. There aren't a lot of materials, and we just don't even know where to begin. So I decided, great, I'm really interested in this personally and professionally, so I will start creating some trainings. And then I worked with Green Mountain Self Advocates, which is a group of people with intellectual developmental disabilities in Vermont. And I went to them and said, I want to create some materials. And they said, great, nothing about us without us. And I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But they said, we want to help design this curriculum, and we also want to be teachers of this curriculum. So it was a good moment for me in this awareness that people with disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities, wanted to have a say in the materials I was using and creating. And then about 4 years ago, I teamed up with someone that I worked with at Planned Parenthood, and we started doing this work full time. It was really a side business that I had, and I had other positions, and I just kept getting more and more requests. So I've been doing this work really for the last 5 years full time. And one of the things that I mentioned is I developed a sexuality education curriculum. And then we revised it in 2018. And it's designed to be team taught between a sexuality educator, a professional, and a self-advocate. Some people just use it as professionals, and that's fine too, but it really is designed for that co-teaching as well. And the name of my company is Elevatus Training. And the reason for that name is that I spent my life really working on elevating the status of all people, including people with disabilities. And so this idea of elevate us, and also for people to see people with disabilities as sexual beings as well, that everyone is a sexual being, including people with disabilities. So sort of elevating that idea as well. All right, so what we're going to do over the next hour and a half, and thank you all those of you that have your videos on. I know sometimes people have bad hair days, or maybe the internet isn't great, but I do love to see faces. But what we're going to talk about is I'm going to talk about some specific issues people with developmental disabilities face regarding sexuality. We'll talk a little bit about disability history and culture. we're also going to explore what topics need to be covered, effective skills and tools for teaching this population, and then ways to adapt lessons to meet various learning needs. So just a quick agenda here. We're going to do an introduction, talk a little bit about messages people with disabilities receive, what's the same and different regarding human sexual development, essential and effective skills and tools for teaching. We'll do a breakout room where we look at an activity and think about adaptations. And then I'll talk with you about working with parents as well. And I know many of you have done a lot of this work. And I think one of the things that is really clear to me is that sexuality educators or health educators have a lot of the skills needed to work with someone with a disability. It's just maybe learning a bit more about their culture or just, different struggles they face. So when you think about teaching this population, people with intellectual developmental disabilities, what are you looking forward to if you think about learning about this? Maybe you already do work with this population and you'll be reaching more people with some new ideas, or maybe you haven't worked with this population at all. But what are you looking forward to? And you can put those in the chat. So I'd love to hear what's on your mind around that. So something you're looking forward to.
I think for me, it's a lot about empowering students to make choices as adults.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. And many times people with disabilities are not treated as adults. So yeah, so treating them like adults and empowering them. Wonderful. Looking forward to creating access to good information for all. Great. Learning about different pedagogies and methods to use in the classroom as a facilitator. Being able to share new skills with teachers. Oh, great. Yes. Wonderful. Meeting young people where they are. Not seeing them differently, but giving them the info they need to make the best and healthy choices for themselves. Adaptations for IDD. Help them feel confident and make healthy decisions. Building curriculum, tailoring activities. Forward to being conversation where they share their perspective. Great. Being able to learn from them. I'm a program evaluator and would very much like to see more focus in my field. Yeah, put on youth with IDD and their sexual and reproductive health needs. They're often left behind. Yes. Understand student needs, learning from folks what they're most interested in learning about and ways to teach them. Seconding ways to empower youth. Great. All right. So also when you think about working with this population, what worries you or what concerns do you have in working with this population as well?
Maybe disagreements with families.
Yep, right. Yeah, and we'll talk about working with parents towards the end, but yes, that can be, my experience in working in the field is that working directly with students is wonderful and fun and exciting and great work, and that they're not the barrier. Really, it's people around them that are worried about them. Yeah, so here's a few blowback. Yes, blowback from families, the community, and caregivers, using inclusive language. Yep. That I don't deliver the information in an effective way to them. How to reach these youth within integrated classrooms. Many organizations that I work with, IDD youth are in my area, are religiously affiliated and may not share my values. Sure. Worry about not able to answer all questions properly. Okay, great. Yeah, so it's definitely, working with a different population, but as I said before, you have so many of the skills that are needed already, and it's really just thinking about the population and what do I need to know about it and what are some strategies that are helpful too. So great, thank you all. That's helpful to me. So when we think about youth with intellectual developmental disabilities, what messages do they receive around sexuality? I see some people are putting in a couple other things. But what kind of messages do you think people with disabilities are getting around sexuality? I mean, I know that as a culture, and we often don't get really positive messages, just in general. But Annie wrote, not much. So not getting much messages. Yeah. Other people, shameful messages. Yep, sure. It's for other people. Yep. Yeah, there was a self-advocate who talked about being in the mainstream health class, learning about nutrition and physical activity, and then was removed during the sexuality unit. That's for other people, not you. Yeah, not included in the conversation, don't see themselves represented. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of movies and things, they don't see that representation, that they don't need the information, right? Why would you need that? You're not a sexual person. Yeah, and a lot of self-advocates, these are what they say, they get this message that you're not sexual, this isn't for you, you should not have sex. You probably can't have sex, and definitely don't want to be sexual. And you're innocent and childlike and need protection from sexuality. You're not responsible, can't solve problems, unable to make good decisions about sexuality, would not make good parents, so should not have children. And they also notice that the messages they receive are very different than the messages that their non-disabled siblings receive. And, you might just sort of be aware of that maybe people who are male get different messages than female. You can kind of see those similarities, that we treat people differently based on gender, disability, race. So they notice that as well. And so we want to really, obviously get rid of the negative messages and start giving positive messages. But I wanted to talk about, I don't know if any of you have seen this, this couple, Interabled Love. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but I'm not sure why it isn't here, but there we go. So this is a couple, and I'll show you, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's pretty long, and there's also a quick little ad for who filmed this. But if you haven't seen them, you might want to check them out. They have the YouTube channel, and they are a couple, and he has a physical disability and she does not. And it's really about their relationship. And so while you're watching it, just sort of pay attention to the messages that they're receiving, but also are there times when maybe you believed some of these ideas as well, and maybe you still do, but just take a look at this and see what you think. Oops.
Can't go? Do this to clear out.
So that didn't work. Hold on. It usually just comes right up. Oh. We might have to listen to a commercial. Can
Our
you see this or
relationship
no?
is normal.
Let me stop sharing and try to just do it on my desktop. Here we go. I'll do there. All right. There we go. You got it now?
And
Thank you, Andrew.
exciting, and she helps me poop, but otherwise we're just a regular couple that has fun and gets into arguments and figures out life together.
My love for Shane is definitely both physical and emotional. I love his personality. He's a wonderful boyfriend. And we definitely connect physically. I love his body and everything about him, really. Why are you laughing? That's making it so much harder. You told me to say that. No, but don't laugh like that.
Does he like pushing your buttons?
Yeah, definitely. In a loving way. I think it's funny. He definitely teases me.
We are physically intimate, and I think a lot of people hear that and they go, how? It's a little different, maybe, and in many ways it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You love my body?
Oh my God.
You should tell me that more often.
Welcome to SBSK. Join me as I travel around the world and interview individuals living with a condition to prove no matter how you communicate or what obstacles you face, you're always deserving of love and acceptance. So without hesitation, let's meet today's friend.
Well, let's just jump into the most important question. What's your biggest pet peeve about Shane?
Oh, this is an easy one.
Oh, God.
Shane has a habit of asking me for a sip, like from a cup, and then as I bring it to his mouth, he starts talking and just begins a conversation. So then I'm stuck holding a cup, waiting for him to finish, and it's always a long sentence. He'll be like, "Do you remember the time? I'm not sure when it was." Nice long sentence.
Yeah. I live with a disease called spinal muscular atrophy type 2, and that causes my muscles to waste away as I get older. Hannah is my primary caregiver, and so from the moment I wake up to the moment I get in bed, Hannah is doing most of my care. It affects every part of my body. I never walked. I got my first wheelchair when I was 2 years old, and today it affects my arms, my mouth, my lungs, everything.
I had absolutely zero familiarity with anything disability related when I met him. And then like the first date we were on, someone came up to the table and started praying over him. And I was like, uh-oh, like what do I do? And he was like, "Oh, don't worry, this happens all the time." So I was shocked, and that is true, it really does happen all the time. So that definitely opened my eyes to like an entire world that I was completely unaware of.
People will come up to us and be like, "Oh, this must be your sister, or your mom, or your nurse."
I can't believe the mom thing. I've gotten that like 5 times, and he's 4 years older than me.
I have to grow out my mustache.
I know.
They are just confounded by the idea that we would be together. And that hurts. Thinking about that is hurtful. Because if they knew me, they would know that I'm a funny, intelligent, caring guy that obviously deserves love. I used to hate my body, to the point where I would leave all my clothes on at the beach, like on our family vacation, because I knew I didn't like the way that people looked at me. And I knew from their looks that they must think I was weird. I had already, by the age of like 6, 7, experienced the way that the world assumed so much about me because of the way I looked.
We were on a romantic walk through the park by a lake near our house a couple of weeks ago. I thought that we clearly looked like a couple. A father with a group of kids runs up to me and is like, "Does he want to play with bubbles?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And the guy was like, "Does he want to play with bubbles?" And Shane was like, "No, thank you."
Mm-hmm. And then he looked at me, "You can talk?"
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
That kind of assumption is made all the time, that I'm not capable of interacting or thinking for myself. A love for my physical looks developed in time, and a lot of that came from Hannah just like loving me entirely.
Is caregiving something that's just part of your life, or is it something you consider an act of love?
I think it's just part of my life. Yeah. I don't really consider it like a special thing that I do for Shane. It's just sort of a normal part of our daily lives now that we don't even think about.
We don't look at the caregiving aspects as like a chore, but rather just something that we're hanging out and doing together. Do you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, I think we sort of combine the caregiving and the boyfriend-girlfriend parts. Like, I don't see it as like, now I'm going to be your caregiver and now I'm going to be your girlfriend.
Time to shower.
Yeah.
No more talking.
Yeah. So I think we just see it as hanging out, and I think we just sort of maintain the boyfriend-girlfriend roles all the time.
I'm just going to stop.
Try eating this red vegetable if you suffer.
I'm going to stop there. So just to give you a sense of the two of them, and hopefully you'll check them out more in the future. But what did you observe? Like, what kind of messages were they receiving about being a person with a disability. All right, I gotta get my electronics organized here. So what did you observe or notice? And also just in general, what did you notice while you were watching it? Kind of thoughts did you have? All right, so a lot of infantilism, yep, that they shouldn't. Being infantilized, yes. People making a lot of assumptions, they shouldn't be together, it's weird. Yeah, exactly. That message around must be a sister, couldn't be a girlfriend. Yeah. Nurse or relative, not girlfriend, exactly. People felt pity, praying over. Yeah, exactly. So many assumptions. Yes. Yeah, great. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone noticed any of their own reactions looking at the two of them and, thinking any of these thoughts themselves. And that's okay because we've grown up with this idea of people with disabilities too. So we may have to reflect a little and learn about how we feel about disability as well. So I think when we think about being good at this work, we have to be self-reflective, and that's true whether we're looking at disability or not. But do I have any negative or positive values, attitudes, or beliefs regarding sexuality and disability? Am I comfortable or uncomfortable with people with disabilities, and why or why not? Am I nervous to do something wrong or somehow see them as fragile? And what kind of experience do you have working with the population is another part of reflecting. And then also, since there's higher rates of sexual abuse, so the statistic is that people with intellectual developmental disabilities are 7 times more likely to be sexually abused than someone without. And if you look at females with IDD, it's 12 times more likely. So sexual abuse histories come up quite a bit, and if you have your own trauma history, are you going to be comfortable with that? Have you addressed your own trauma history really too? So those are things to think about. And I've had people say to me, I'm just not ready, who have a trauma history, because it does pop up quite a bit. So those are things to think about. Do I have discomfort? Why not? And I want to show you another video. This one is about 5 minutes, I think. And it's a couple with Down syndrome. It's called Down for Love. And it's CNN love story. You may have seen this, but I think we'll watch most of this, because I think in particular, you want to know if watching these parents, this couple's parents, is really powerful, and could be used when working with parents as well. You could show the video, but I'll show you this one too. Oh, hold on. How's that make you happy? Yeah, this keeps happening. So I will find it. All right, here we go.
Like this. Right? Yes. She likes when I do this to his hair. Have mercy. Okay. Well, this is my crib. This is my movies. My girlfriend got me it as a gift. That's an award for best boyfriend. I know she's my dream girl. 1, 2, 3 pictures. This was on our first date. First time I saw John, I thought at Cat Pals. Cause that thing, and you expect me to be your boyfriend. Oh yeah, that's right.
When Marissa and John first started dating, I was happy. I mean, what parent doesn't want their child to have everything in life?
People have said to me, oh, John has a girlfriend? How is that possible? But then everything John does has surprised me.
Marissa's never let her Down syndrome stop her from doing anything.
She's really elegant, really charming. I think he's really cute, and I love his funny impressions. Good morning, Vietnam! I didn't kill my wife. Adrian! Adrian! And also I did Morgan Freeman impression. My name is Morgan Freeman.
When Marissa and John get together, they like to go to the movies, they like to go out for dinner, they enjoy going out to hear live music.
Oh my God! Dancing, singing.
Oftentimes when Marissa and John go out dancing, they're the first ones out on the dance floor and getting the party started. I think sometimes people might be a little envious of what they have because they're present in the moment. They don't get bogged down by the traditional relationship issues.
The first day, we saw a movie with his two brothers. Oh yeah, we watched Kung Fu Panda 3. Yes.
Dating's just a little different with someone who also has special needs.
As a rule, there's somebody generally with them or coming to pick them up when their time is finished because neither of them drive.
One of my worries was like public displays of affection. So actually I would talk to them about don't kiss too much out in public, use good manners, hold hands and a kiss on the cheek. Because unfortunately, there still are people in the world that don't accept people who are different. Right now it's kind of hard because John's living out in Fresno and Marissa's here in the Bay Area, but we do try to make sure they get together a couple times a month.
How are you? Good. It's been a long time. Yeah. Sometimes we'll FaceTime, texting. I don't say that much because he's busy with school and stuff at work. I'm a student at Fresno State. This program is called Wayfinders Program.
Wayfinders is a 2-year post-secondary program for students with intellectual disabilities. The goal of the program is to increase independence through peer inclusion, which is why we do it on a campus.
I love having journalist people want to come in with me. That's fun.
He lives in an apartment. They help them budget their money, so he pays his own rent and goes grocery shopping independently.
Magnifico.
He goes to academic classes and life skills types of classes.
There's a class about what is a relationship class. It's a relationship class. I should have done that in the first place.
We've always had a super open relationship with Marissa. We've talked about sex, what's appropriate. We've talked about friendship. We've talked about stages of relationships. They go from 0 to 60 right away. They can meet on day 1 and they're engaged that night, and the next day they're planning their wedding.
Marriage. I was thinking to marry her one day. I'm not sure when. I'm not sure when is a good time to propose yet.
No matter what happens between Marissa and John, I'm gonna support her 100%. If John ends up being the guy for her, great, we'll go for that. It's not my life, it's Marissa's life, and I just help her facilitate what she wants to do.
Being in love is kind of peaceful. Lovely. Sometimes I do get butterflies into my stomach, sometimes.
They just know that it feels good, and love should feel good. It doesn't matter whether they truly get what it means, but the essence of it is that it feels good. And if it feels good, then they're in love, yes.
I know he has Down syndrome, but I don't like to define him that way. And I don't want he and Marissa to be defined that way necessarily either, because they're both great people.
What I want people to know about people who have Down syndrome is they want the same thing as everybody else, and they're totally capable of being in a loving, caring relationship, and they thrive.
Love is love. Love is love. I think they need more details than that. Oh my God.
All right, so watching that, what are some things that you what does that tell you about working with people with intellectual developmental disabilities? What do you take from that? Or takeaways from watching that? You can unmute and just say, or you can put it in the chat. Love is love, no details needed. Yeah. Right. Other things, and even like the parents too, they have the same feelings and emotions as anybody else, and they can express it so well. I love the parents are just facilitating the process. Yeah, really great role models for parenting. Very supportive parents. Yeah. Yep. You also see that empowering. Yep. Supportive and empowering. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could definitely use this video when working with parents too, and just getting their thoughts about it. The struggles are not being able to see each other enough, having to depend on others to get you together. And so there's some of that too, that can be frustrating. Right. Wonder what conversations around having children are like with them and their parents. Yes. What are their parents saying? Hard to know. Yeah. Great. So, what I wanted to do next is really kind of talk about the disability culture too, and some of the things that I think are helpful when you're working with people with disabilities is understanding some of that culture. And if we look at a couple of movements, one is just the general disability movement. Oh, and I meant to tell you, if you haven't seen Crip Camp on Netflix, it's a great, I think it's a movie. I don't know if it's a series. I think it's just a movie. And it's really the start of the disability movement in California many years ago. So there's a disability movement, and then there's the self-advocacy movement. And self-advocacy is really about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities speaking up for what they want in their lives and all of that. So what these two movements do is they empower self-advocates. So very similar to what people took from that video we just watched, but this idea of nothing about us without us. And I mentioned that earlier when I worked on the curriculum. But these movements, they empower self-advocates to speak up, say what they need. It's person-centered. You may hear that word working in a health center around, patient-centered, person-centered, so focusing on the person. It encourages supportive decision-making. So a lot of people with disabilities have guardians. And I mean, not a lot, but many have guardians. And so the guardians make decisions for them. And so a lot of the disability movement organizations are trying to move towards supportive decision-making. So the individual makes the decision, and they have people that support them, helping them think it through. So supportive decision-making. So there's a lot of shift towards that now, and less on having a guardian. It also, these movements provide this idea of the dignity of risk. And what that means is many people don't let people with disabilities take risks. So they, protect them, like we were saying before. And that that everyone has the right to take risks, like many of us might take risks. And as adults, we're allowed to do those things. It's our life, our body, our choice. We get to do what's right for us. But many people with disabilities, people just overprotect and don't let them take risks. And many of the self-advocates say, when they talk to their parents, they say, let me make mistakes, because making mistakes, you can learn from them. I grow. It's like part of the human experience is to make mistakes and learn from them, hopefully, or maybe make a different decision the next time. So there's this a lot of times you'll hear this dignity of risk. And so I think as an educator, making sure that you're allowing people to take risks, just as you would allow someone without a disability. And these movements also believe that sexuality and relationships are human rights as well, and believes that everyone deserves sexuality education. And what that leads to are people owning their bodies. And this is a big issue for people with disabilities. If someone is making decisions for you all the time, telling you what to wear, telling you what to do, you don't even feel like you own your body. And in the curriculum that I wrote, there's a name tag activity. It came from a Planned Parenthood in California. And so the participants put their name tag on there, here or here, just somewhere where we can see it and we can get to know your name. And I say, great, it's your body. You get to decide where your name tag goes. And then the next week, I might add a little bit of pressure, like, I'm the teacher. I think you need to move it. And people with disabilities always move it. It takes about 8 to 10 weeks for them to finally say, no, it's my body. I get to decide where my name tag goes. So owning their bodies is something that I wish we did much sooner. And, that's true for anyone. Young children learned that they don't have to hug Aunt Betty if they don't feel like it, those kinds of things. So the movements really help with people owning their bodies, controlling their lives as well. So really empowering, it's your life. No one can tell you what to do with your life. They also help encourage people to make their own decisions as well, and be proud of who you are, having a disability, or maybe being LGBTQ or of a different race, just being proud too, and having that dignity of risk that I mentioned, and forming positive relationships. So how can you have relationships in your lives? When I first started doing this work, I would go in and start focusing on sort of maybe like pregnancy prevention or sexually transmitted infection prevention. And what I found is that many of the people in the classes didn't even have any friends, let alone a partner. So there's a lot of isolation and loneliness too. So there's a lot of encouragement to have positive relationships in one's life, and that you have the right to have those. And it also decreases abuse as well, knowing like it's my body and I get to decide what's right for me. And I also focus on this idea of sexual self-advocacy, because it's a self-advocacy movement. So people are already saying, speak up for what you want. But let's say, okay, what about sexuality? What do you want in your life? And that can mean speaking up for privacy in your room. It could be wanting to date. So sometimes it's speaking up, and how do you become a strong sexual self-advocate? But all these movements are really empowering for people. Like you were all saying, pieces of what you're looking forward to is really empowering people. So that's a little bit around the movements, but then also just some helpful tips around language. And for many years, people said, we want to use people first language. So a person with a disability, a person who is blind, a person that uses a wheelchair. And that came about because people would just see the disability first and they didn't see the person, right? So it makes sense to be a person with this. And really the default is to use person first language. But really a lot of people in the autism community are starting to say, I don't, this person first thing doesn't work for me. I want to be called autistic. And for many of us that learn person first language, we're like, oh, you're just not supposed to say that. You can kind of cringe. But really saying, I prefer to use identity first language versus person first language. And so if you think about it, it's similar, a person who's a lesbian doesn't say, I'm a person who's a lesbian, they say, I'm a lesbian, right? So they sort of claim their identity. So what I often think about is I listen to hear how people are referring to their own disability, or I even ask, how do you want me to refer to your disability? Do you want me to say autistic or person with autism? Because there's a variety of opinions about it. So I think thinking about it like pronouns, being sort of finding out what pronoun they'd like you to use, how do you want me to refer to your disability as well. And then there's also a whole movement, #SayTheWord, about disability, that there's nothing wrong with the word disability. It's okay to say it. It's sort of factual, but people tend to shy away from it and feel like they're not supposed to say it. And so it's okay to use the word disability. And you can see here, I crossed off a couple of things. And one is people will often say somebody's higher functioning or lower functioning. And a lot of people with disabilities say that when you say I'm higher functioning, it kind of negates any struggles I have. Oh, they're higher functioning. And that, I feel almost like their disability is being dismissed. And then people who are considered lower functioning say, well, I might be in some aspects, but on other aspects, I'm not. So they really want people to describe more of what their abilities and limitations are versus high or low functioning. And I know we use it because it sort of helps us get a picture of things, but self-advocates are saying they don't like it and they prefer you just saying, this person reads, doesn't write, whatever it might be, uses communication boards. They want sort of what will support them. And then the last thing is differently abled. And this is sort of more about the say the word, that a lot of times people will come up with differently abled or physically challenged. And it's really, they're often euphemisms and they're created by people without disabilities. So most people with disabilities are fine with the word disability. And when people are saying differently abled, it just feels like a euphemism and just say the word. So those are things to know about language and the disability culture as well. And this is another video really talking about the myths and stereotypes, but I want to show you just so you can see this resource as well, because it's from the National Council for Independent Living. And they have 2.5 to 3 minute videos on different topics and around sexuality education. And it's created by people with intellectual developmental disabilities for people with intellectual developmental disabilities. So if you're teaching a class and you want to put in something on how to put on a condom, there's a person with a disability that is demonstrating condom use. So it's a way to bring in people with disabilities as teachers and in those leadership roles. And it's very it's using things like a person with a penis and sort of, updated language as well. So let me jump out of this again and start this one. Oops. All right, hold on. I gotta put this back on. A little cumbersome. Here we go.
For people with IDD. Welcome.
Why do we have to make a video about sex ed for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
When the other kids had sex education, I had to go somewhere else.
Other kids got to learn about birth control and condoms and how to be parents, and all anyone ever told me was don't have sex.
My parents had a big discussion about sex with my sister who doesn't have a disability, but when I was growing up, nobody said anything to me.
There are a lot of myths of sexuality and people with disabilities.
Some people feel people with disabilities aren't sexual and that we don't need sex education at all.
But that's not true.
People also say people with disabilities are too sexual or hypersexual. If they start talking to us about sex, we're just gonna go right out and start having sex all over the place.
That's not true either.
Other folks think people with IDD don't have the same variety of sexual and gender identity.
We do, and we shouldn't ignore that.
These myths is how people with disabilities are portrayed in the media.
So welcome to our sex ed video for and by people with IDD.
It has different parts. You can skip around. You can watch from beginning to end. It's up to you.
Produced by the National Council on Independent Living and Rooted in Rights, with support from the WITH Foundation.
All right. So
Sex ed for people with IDD.
the link is in the slide deck towards the end under resources. So it's National Council for Independent Living. Let me go back to the slide deck. All right, so any questions at this point? I'm going to move into human sexual development and people with intellectual developmental disabilities. Are we good for now? Yeah.
We did get a question from a grantee asking if she could receive a copy of the the links to the videos.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. I'll definitely, is there a way to send them out after?
Yeah, we will be sending the deck out, to all the attendees after the webinar. So she'll have access to them there.
Yeah, I just don't know if I have all of them linked on the resources, but I'll make sure you get them, no problem. All right, video links. Yeah, so I could send those to you, Chloe, if you can send them out to everyone.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about human sexual development. So just thinking now, what do you think is the same for someone with an intellectual developmental disability? And then after that, what do you think is different as far as human sexual development? We've talked about some of these things already, but just in general, what do you think is the same? You can put it in the chat, you can unmute yourself and say what you think is the same. Anybody? Same. Puberty, yeah, absolutely. The need for love and connection, menstruation, same, yeah. Body development, yes, absolutely. And there's so much that's the same, probably more than what's different. But sometimes people will ask the need to know information, feelings, yeah. Yeah, sometimes people will ask about puberty and do people with intellectual developmental disabilities start puberty within the typical range? And they do. There are a couple of disabilities that sexual organs, sexual functioning can be impacted. But in general, yeah, all of these things happen as typical human sexual development. So just a few things like assigned gender is the same, gender roles are reinforced, biological changes are the same, need the same information based on biological age. So that's something you might hear maybe from teachers or parents is, yeah, I know that he's 18, but he has a cognitive age of 7. So let's just teach him what 7-year-olds need. And what we want to say is, no, we want to base it on the biological age. So if there's 2 18-year-olds, one with a disability, one without, they need the same information. How you teach it is going to be different based on cognitive ability, but not necessarily what you teach. So that's something we want to get across to parents and other teachers you might be supporting as well. Have sexual feelings, people put that up, feelings are the same, and dreams too. Some want to have relationships, want to have babies, like many people want. And so a lot of that is the same. What do you think might be different as far as human sexual development? Differences? Ability to consent, it's a huge issue. Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. Access to information, accessibility, understanding barriers. Yeah, there's a lot, and a lot of that has to do not with the person, but more about the culture in a lot of ways. The myths and assumptions made. So lack basic sexuality information and skills. I work with 50-year-old men who do not know how babies are made. So some of the really basic information they can be lacking as grown men. Thought of as asexual, and then it was mentioned in the video, thought of as oversexed as well. So they can't handle this information, so I'm going to withhold information from them because they'll have sex with everyone if I give them this. This will give them ideas. So there's a sort of this oversexed kind of attitude. Taken out of class, I mentioned. often forgiven, behaviors are accepted or forgiven. And so we say, oh, it's fine that this 18-year-old hugged a stranger. The stranger says, oh, they didn't mean anything. Yeah, well, we're really setting people up because someone else might say, might charge them with a assault. So we have to teach people with disabilities to act their age. And I don't mean that in a, act your age. I mean that in a, what do we expect of 18-year-olds? And sometimes we have to teach those skills. So one of the lessons that I teach is the different types of relationships and how you touch in those relationships and what kind of information do you share with people in those different kinds of relationships. So teaching those healthy boundaries so that people aren't victimized or charged with assaults, really teaching how do you interact with people. The nature of their disability, many times won't pick up on the social cues. So a lot of our learning about relationships and sexuality, we just sort of picked up along the way. No one really had to say it to us. And so we have to do more of that, teaching some of those social norms. And sometimes also people can have trouble reading body language or identifying emotions. So lots of work around that as well. And then lack friendships and social opportunities. So a lot of opportunity to try out relationship skills, even informal learning that we may all have had growing up. Maybe it wasn't all accurate, but we learn a lot from our friends and hanging out. And so they often miss those opportunities and are often very lonely. And parents, if we're thinking about this group of parents, many of them say that they let go of dreams for their child related to sexuality, and they start to think of them as not sexual. And I'm saying to them, oh, why don't you talk to your kids about this? And it can be painful to sort of bring it all up again. And then they're also very worried about abuse or their child abusing someone else. How you teach the topics is different, like I mentioned. And I think the hard part is that they may have a wide range of abilities and limitations. And so you can be teaching a topic and somebody asks a question and you have this feeling, you're in your brain going, okay, if I go down this path, I'm going to lose half the group. But this group wants to talk about it. So that can be really tricky to try to meet all the learning needs. And so I often will work with people that have similar limitations and abilities, just because it's easier to meet learning needs when there's some similarities. And then often lack privacy to explore their sexuality. I'm going to show you one more video, and I promise to get you the link to this, but it's a great one around privacy. It's called Just the Two of Us, and it came out this year for World Down Syndrome Day. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful video. Uh-oh. All right, hold on, everybody. I don't know why this is so cumbersome. All right, here we go. I found it. Coming your way.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I see the crystal raindrops fall and the beauty of it all. And when the sun comes shining through, just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us, you and I. I wanna be the one. I wanna be the one with you.
All right, so reactions to that, and then we'll move on to some strategies. All right, something in the chat here. That was, yes. Yeah, it's my favorite right now. You know, not to mention like people dressed in nightgowns and, you know, just well-meaning people, right? Well-meaning, but getting in people's business a little bit too much. Yeah, so it's a great one. And I will get you that link too. All right, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so some things to think about. We talked about sort of self-reflection first. Do I have any, you know, sort of negative beliefs about people with disabilities, all of that. But then the next thing is like, what are the needs of my student? And so first thinking about, well, what sexuality education have they received already? You know, where do I need to start in a lot of ways? Also, are they non-speaking? Some people will say nonverbal. So do they not speak? And then how can they engage in the class? And we took our sexuality education curriculum and we created some communication boards and cards as well. Because people who are non-speaking, you know, could do thumbs up and thumbs down in my class, and that was it. But how do I engage them more with the content? It also helps you assess learning as well, if you see people pointing to things. And are they non-readers? And these are all important things to know because you might have to adapt based on some of this. You know, is there some movement? Will they need to get up and move around sometimes? Is there a physical disability as well? And they may need room for getting in and out of the classroom, but also what are some of the physical issues that they might be facing around their sexual development? Are they deaf and need an interpreter? Are there sensory issues? So bright lights or noise can be really distracting for people. Do they need more time to process? And what, you know, sometimes what happens is people are in the mainstream health class, which is great. And it's good for seeing social interaction and social learning theory and all those pieces. But what other topics are needed? Because they need things really concretely taught to them. And so what else needs to be taught, like public and private and types of relationships that you wouldn't get in a mainstream health class. So just some tips. So the third thing is just some class techniques. Slow down. Lots of silence is okay. People need time to think through the content and talk about it. So just slowing down. Being concrete, and we're going to talk about this more specifically, but also using plain language. And plain language means language that most people would understand. So an example that you know, people will talk about like, what's an erection or something, and they'll say it's when a person's aroused. Well, aroused and arousal isn't really a plain language word. So it might be when a person has sexual feelings, or being even concrete when a penis sticks up. So using plain language. So I often will say, is there any way this could be misunderstood? I often ask myself with the language that I'm using. Take lots of breaks, short chunks of content, and avoid ambiguity. But there's also times when we have to, you know, things aren't all black and white. And so you might say something like, you know, no one can touch your sexual parts unless you say it's okay. Well, okay, that's true, yes. But unless you're, you know, you're older and you're ready to be in a sexual romantic relationship, or maybe you need help bathing and someone might be helping you with that, or you have, you know, diapering. So there might be some more. So there's a doctor or a nurse and they're making sure you're healthy. So there are times when people touch your sexual parts and they're not in a sexual romantic relationship with you. So sort of that gray area and explaining those differences. Group agreements, I'm going to share a couple that I like to use in a bit. The other thing is this, and as I've told you before, this population is taught to say yes. So similar to move the name tag. Okay, I'll do it, you know, I do what I'm told. Taught to comply. So sometimes if we say, does that make sense? They'll say, just to please you and comply. So sometimes checking for learning can be really helpful. Like, can you repeat to me and teach me now what I just taught you about blah, blah, blah. So you can assess learning, because they may just say, yeah. Be prepared for disclosure, and focus on trauma-informed sexuality education. A variety of disabilities, so a variety of adaptations, so communication supports, interpreters, technology, lots of different types of lessons, which you all know about already, hands-on, lots of visuals. I think we also want to assume competence, and this is same when somebody wrote ability to consent. We often think that people do not have the ability to consent, and then they have to show us that they can consent, or that they're incompetent, and then they're going to show us that they're competent. And I think we have to switch that around and assume competence, unless for some reason it's demonstrated that they don't have competence around a certain topic. And I think of it as guilty till proven innocent, but really what it's supposed to be is innocent until proven guilty. So I'd say competent, just assume competence. And teach non-compliant skills. And as a sexuality educator, I don't want to just teach no, right? I want people to be able to make their own choices and say yes to what they want and no to what they don't want. But with this population, they often are saying yes, just all the time. So teaching how to non-comply and say no. So practice saying no is an important skill for them to learn. I'm also going to show you the Scarborough method. And then I just talked about a lot of these things already, but give the messages of the self-advocacy and other disability movements, use disability language, give positive messages about sexuality and not just abuse prevention, because that's a lot of, when people do provide sexuality education for people with intellectual developmental disabilities, they focus on abuse prevention. Yes, very important, but there's other aspects too. There's healthy relationships and how do you meet people and all kinds of things. Treat people with IDD just like anyone else. And I've already said there can be a wide range of abilities and limitations. So grouping students with similarities can be helpful for everyone. I'm just going to talk about these three techniques, and then I think we're moving into the adaptation. So you can think about all that we've talked about, and then how might you tweak some lessons. So being concrete. So concrete versus abstract. So there was a young man with an intellectual developmental disability that was told that you need to masturbate in private, and private is when no one is around. And so they were in McDonald's dining area at 3 p.m. No one was around, so it must be private. So we have to be even more detailed than that. And I'll show you an activity around public and private. And really thinking about the steps, what are all the pieces I need to think about? What is the gray area? Is any of this language, could it be possibly misunderstood as well? So here's public and private. So when other people are there or might be there, it's a place where people can go in and out. There's certain ways of speaking and touch that are okay to do in public places, but not all. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat are all public. Private is where you're alone and no one can come in and out, or you might be with someone and no one can come in and out. There's certain ways of speaking and touch are okay to do in private, but not public. And then really being clear, concrete around, okay, is this public or private? And people will say, well, it's public because there's people there. Okay, yeah, it's a bus, people are there, it's a public place. But what if you're in the way back, no one else is on the bus driver's way in the front, they can't even see you? Well, that's pretty private, right? And then nope, because people can come in and out. And you're also not alone, the bus driver is there. This is a bedroom or a hotel room and the door is closed and people can't come in and out. So that's a private place. Bathroom, depending on where a person lives, can be thought of as a private place as well. with the door closed. And movie theater, same thing, you know, public, private. What if you're the only ones there and you and your partner are way in the back in the dark, no one can see you? It's still public, so we have to do public things. And then this one is one of those gray areas, like, whoa, okay. First of all, we don't really know where this is, but let's say it's a park. But it could be a beach, or it could be a swimming pool and there's grass there, right? Or their backyard, we don't really know. And so where can you wear a bathing suit in a public place? Because not all public places can you wear a bathing suit. So pool, the, you know, lake, beach, your backyard, if it's fairly, might be kind of public, but you want to keep our bathing suits on. So this one is, you know, just having conversations about how do you know it's public or private, and what are the clues? And then if we look at things like consent, you know, I love fries. You're probably all familiar with that concept, right? So freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So again, I would adapt this because some of these words are not really plain language words. So you know, this doesn't have the nice acronym, but freely given or chosen, and I teach what that means. Reversible, I would change to change your mind and stop anytime during the sexual act. Informed, I'd probably change to honest and no lies. Enthusiastic, you know, yippee, or you feel really happy about the choice, like you're going to you're going to go to the movies tonight and you're really excited. That's what enthusiastic is. So this feeling of yippee, I'm really excited. And then specific to which sexual acts are we talking about? So which ones? So I think so just thinking about language and adapting things can be really helpful to people in understanding. And then I teach consent as, you know, did the person say yes, and was it freely chosen? And freely chosen means they weren't threatened or blackmailed or pressured or lied to or forced. And then just go through many different scenarios. So these are sort of the opposite of consent, and just using different scenarios. So did the person say yes? Yep. And was it freely chosen? Yeah. So this one, you know, do you want pepperoni on your pizza? Yeah, that sounds good. I love pepperoni. So that would be, they said yes, and it was freely chosen. They didn't hold a gun to their head. They didn't hit them over the head with pepperoni. They just listened and respected the response. And then we go into more scenarios that are sexual as well. So this is just some different examples, and you've got them on your slide deck. And then I also included in the handouts, I put the link in the chat for all the handouts, but we've created some gender identities and sexual identities using plain language. And Amanda is a woman. She was born female. She's a cisgender woman. So this handout is in the folder. We were also asked to add two-spirit to this one for this presentation, so we added it to the handout as well. So that's in there. So just some examples of how thinking about plain language. All right. And then the Scarborough method is another technique. And we won't go into too much detail, but we often answer questions with giving just what is the physical aspect of a question. So someone says, what is an erection? We say it's when the penis gets hard. But they're also, for this population, it's really helpful to talk about the social aspects surrounding that question, as well as the emotional feelings connected to it. So here's another example. You know, what is a condom? It's a rubber sock that covers a penis. Using a condom is private. So a lot around privacy, a lot around consent. It protects you and your partner. And emotional, many people feel good when they use them because they're being responsible and protecting themselves and their partner. So thinking about when you respond to things, how do you expand it so they understand kind of the context around it. So erection, we might say something like, it's something that happens in private and can feel really good when it's in private, but when it's in public, you can feel embarrassed or other people can feel embarrassed. So you want to go somewhere private, or you want to cover it up when you're in public. So just thinking beyond what is it, but what are also the sort of social norms and things around it. All right, so now we're moving in, couple group agreements. One of the things, again, healthy boundaries, we want to teach social norms about being in a classroom too. So confidential unless, you're being hurt, right? Showing respect, express yourself in a kind way. But I often will tell people that it's okay and important to ask questions, but not personal, private questions of the teacher or the other students. So it's okay to say, how do I ask someone out on a date? I'd like to learn about that. But it's not okay to ask if someone had sex last night. That's private. So we're giving this message that sex is private, and that we only talk to certain people about it as well. And it's okay to share stories, but not personal sexual stories. Again, that's private. But I also say to people, after class, we can talk in private. I don't want people to feel like they have no one to talk to if they have a personal, private story question they want to ask, to give them that private time. But I've had people, tell all in class, and it's again, making people vulnerable, not really understanding that they're, it's not what's expected of people. And also it could be triggering to other people, some of their stories. Okay, so nice, Annie, thank you for that. We say all questions are okay to ask, but not all will be answered. Yeah, yep. And then the other thing is the gray area. Even though we're talking about a private topic in a public place, like the classroom is really public, it's okay because we're learning. We're going to shut the door and make it more private, but it wouldn't be okay to go out to the grocery store and talk to the person behind the deli about this. It's okay that we're doing this in the classroom because we're learning. So those are just a few that have saved me along the way. So we're going to do an activity, and it's around adapting the lesson. So I'm just making a quick change here to things based on numbers. Oops. So what you're going to do is in the handouts, there is I'm going to give you the link right now so you have it. There's a lesson. And I'm not sure why this is giving me such a hard time. All right, I'm going to try it again. I'm just going to put the link in here again. And if you can get the link, you're going to pull up this lesson. I'll show you which one it is so you can have it. So you want the sample lesson. So it comes from, I think, one of ETR's strategies for preventing HIV infection, Stop, Think, Act. So in your groups, what you're going to do is, so group 1 through 3 is going to work on activity A. Groups 4 through 6 are going to work on activity B, and 7 and beyond are going to work on activity C. So take a quick look at the activity, kind of get a sense, and in your group just say, what are 3 things you might change about this lesson to be more cognitively accessible? All right, and I'm going to share this in the breakout room as well, so you'll have it. So I think you'll be getting invitations shortly. Okay, so let me
All right, yeah, if you want to share to the breakout now.
Yes, I do. So where is it? There we go. Okay. Share to breakout room. Thank you for that. And share. All right, got it. That is a great feature.
Okay.
Cameron, do you want to pause the recording for a second and we can?
All right, so I'd love to hear from a few people some of the things that they would change when they looked at an activity, thought about what we've talked about and applied it. What are some changes? And just a few of those would be great, just getting you to think about how you might adapt something. Anybody? You can even put it in the chat if you want.
I know one thing our group talked about was including as much thumbs up or thumbs down as we could when discussing things, like to agree or not agree. When it comes to materials that need to be read, you could offer to read those out loud as appropriate. We had also stop, think, act. So we thought we could do some visual sorting there, like having maybe stop, like red, yellow, green stoplights, things like that.
Yeah.
And we also know just the importance of, having a lot of enthusiasm when doing these lessons and highlighting this is fun. We're going to be learning what this is fun as well.
Great, great. Nice. all right, and there's a few things in here. Simplify the consent terms in a way that's more concrete. Yes. Group 4, I mentioned before that I would have defined pressure, intimidation, coercion. Yep. Showing what that actually looks like. Great. Instead of asking what messages they've heard about giving consent off the bat, I'd review what consent means in plain language. I'd review phrases you can ask to get consent and phrases that does not indicate consent, using thumbs up to indicate yes or no as far as consent. Yep, I can't think of another adaptation, but the hot chocolate example might be really good to emphasize. Yes, yeah, I read that one as well. More, Megan.
Yeah, so we had talked about a lot of the same things that people have already mentioned, like using those visual cues for different parts of the activity. And also just from the perspective of having done making proud choices before and being a trainer on it, I know that these lessons have a lot of different pieces and they are all timed out. And so I think you would definitely want to look at how much time you're spending with the youth and figure out, okay, the curriculum says this lesson is supposed to take 10 minutes, but I know that my youth are going to need some extra support with it. So we're going to allot, 20 minutes instead. So if you were going to use this curriculum, I would definitely want to figure out what all of that timing would look like beforehand, because you wouldn't be able to just pick it up and do that from what is written in the curriculum.
Right, great. Yeah. Excellent. And there's lots of other good comments here in the chat. And I also, while you were all there, I got the video links for everyone. So I'm actually going to upload those into the chat and then we'll talk about parents and wrap up. But can I? Yeah, I think I can do that from my computer. So all the links are now in the chat. So we don't even have to. Hopefully you can download that Word document and you'll have all the links for what I've used today. Well, great. So thinking about adaptation and, maybe more visuals and more time and that kind of thing is right on target. So that's wonderful. And I'm just going to do a couple things on parents and then we will finish up here. So parents, I've already said a few things about them, but really asking them what worries them about that. So if their child's going to be in sexuality education class, to say what worries you about that, and to find out what the worry is underneath it. And then hopefully being able to give some reassurance to parents around those worries. Also, if you have any parents who are on board, buy in, have a child with a disability, that's a great option too, to get them to talk with other parents about it as well. So that peer education model. And also making the connection between sexual abuse prevention and sexuality education. Many parents think that sexuality education means you're going to go out and have sex. You're teaching my kid to have sex, but there's so much that you're teaching beyond that. and that connection to sexual abuse prevention. So I think we've run out of time, and I didn't have many more slides, just more my Elevatus products and trainings and things. So check out the website. My email is on the slide deck as well. Reach out with any questions. And I thought we could just end in the chat with what's one thing you can do moving forward to support students with intellectual developmental disabilities. Just something you can do tomorrow. Just a quick wrap up here.
And I just want to say thank you everyone for coming, and thank you so much, Catherine. This was incredibly informative, and we will be sending the resources out afterwards. So don't worry about having to get everything right now. And just one last thing, that a pop-up should come up after the webinar for you to fill out an evaluation. So please just take a moment to do that. And again, thank you all so much.
Great, thanks everybody. Recruiting for programming, all right. And adapting language, more visuals, excellent. Yes, take care everyone, and please reach out if you think of any other questions. Presume competent, love it, go slow. Great, thanks everybody.